Again, it's time for Health Monday, and joining us is Jacob and Jared from Marble City Pharmacy, and we're talking this morning about skin disorders. And I was telling the guys during the break that when I was younger, when I was a kid, I had a skin disorder, and it was psoriasis on my elbows, and it got in my hair, in my eyebrows, and it was embarrassing. And I would not wear short sleeve shirts for a long time. And we're talking about skin disorders this morning, so it's really something prevalent among people today.
Oh yeah, sure. Psoriasis, of course, is a condition that you want to see a dermatologist about, but we definitely want to talk about some things today that we see quite commonly that can be treated with over-the-counter medicines.
Yep, and Jacob, one of those is, this time of the year especially, is poison ivy or poison oak.
Well, you know, we're very, very lucky in Alabama in that we have all three. We have poison ivy, we have poison oak, we have poison sumac. Ivy's the least common here, but a whole lot of poison oak and poison sumac here in Alabama. And people getting out, it's growing very readily right now. People getting out a lot more. You have a lot of instances coming in.
What's the do's and don'ts about this skin disorder?
Well, I used to tell myself this. When I used to play golf in college, I used to get poison oak or sumac all the time. That's because I hit my golf ball in the woods.
Yeah. So, go get it.
Number one thing for these type of skin problems is to avoid them. It sounds, sometimes it's easier said than done in Alabama if you spend any time in the woods at all. But the poison oak, the poison sumac, the poison ivy happen when we come in contact with the sap that comes from the plants. And that only happens when the leaves are broken. And so the leaves contain this sap. It has something in there called urushiol, not to get too technical, but if you were to brush up against one of these plants and break one of the leaves, get some of this sap on your body, then you're going to be exposed to this substance. And so that's what causes, a lot of times as we brush by the plants, you'll see linear lesions on the arms because it comes from coming in contact with them. But that's not the only way we can get it. If we don't do a good job of washing those things off of our body parts, off of our clothes, then we can continue to spread the lesions over sometimes a 2 or 3 week period.
And I guess, Jacob, we begin to scratch, right?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things. The number one don't is the number one won't. Yeah, don't scratch, don't scratch, don't scratch. That's a lot easier said from behind this desk this morning than it is when your arms or legs or whatever are just eaten up with the lesions from poison oak or poison sumac. Because when you scratch, you're breaking the little rash on your skin. You're spreading the poison sap more. You know, you're more likely to have more and more lesions the more you scratch. Makes it work. Get it more places. Make it last longer. You scratch enough, you lead to scarring. I mean, there's just a lot that can go on when you scratch that we're trying to avoid. But again, easier said than done.
So, Jacob, what do we do?
Well, there are all kinds of medications over the counter to help with the itching. There are medications that help to dry up the lesions if they are blisters that are still oozing. Of course, the great thing to do would be to talk to your pharmacist because there are probably literally 10 to 15 medications on every pharmacy shelf that will help to treat these things. And so come and see us at the pharmacy and we can help you get the right thing. Avoiding exposure be number one. Secondly, come see us. We'll help you get straightened out.
And of course, that's the pharmacist at Marble City Pharmacy here in Silicotta. And you talk about poison ivy and poison oak, whatever you want to call it. And our kids especially are susceptible to that too.
That's what we worry about. Kids get it because, you know, I know that, and I know it's different these days. I never spent a day where I wasn't in the woods or out in our yard doing something ridiculous when I was growing up. And so it's very common in kids. And the reason you would need to seek out a pharmacist or some type of professional advice in children, especially if they're younger than 2, very sensitive skin, you've been out in the yard playing or whatever, then you want to talk to a doctor about that. Younger than 2, you don't want to self-treat. even kids between that 2 and 12 or so range, definitely speak with your pharmacist before you put a lot of stuff on them, because their skin is more sensitive. Medicines are more harsher on them. More harsher is a terrible English. We'll pretend I did not say that. And so you do need to, if it's in your children, you do need to speak with some pharmacist, doctor, something, so we know what to do.
I guess we ought to say before we move on how to recognize these type of plants. You guys may have heard the common saying, leaves of 3 let it be, or leaves of 3 beware of thee, something along those lines. Both poison ivy and poison oak are plants with 3 leaves on them. There's a slight difference between the oak and the ivy, but sumac is something that we may not recognize. It's just as poisonous as the other two. This is something you should Google, guys, if you're in the woods very much, because you need to find the images and understand what it looks like. It has 7 to 10 leaves kind of wrapped around the vine. Anyway, so we can show you some pictures of those if you come see us, but these are things we need to be able to recognize and keep away from.
Is athlete's foot, is that something guys just deal with, or is it everybody?
All right, we're ready to switch gears. We're leaving poison oak. We're leaving, technical term, are you ready? On 2, or 2 in this sentence. We're leaving contact dermatitis. Well, that's okay, that's 1. And now we're going to talk about dermatomycosis.
Well, is this more harsher than the other?
Look, I had to make up for more harsher by saying something that sounded smart. So now we're going to talk about dermatomycosis. Long term, we're going to talk about fungal infections on the skin. And the first one we're going to talk about is athlete's foot. It is more common in males. It's more common in that 15 to 35 or 40 age group. But no, anyone can get athlete's foot. It's not just males, but it is more common in males because we're less likely to keep ourselves all that clean. We're more likely to wear heavy socks and shoes, keep them on a little too long, and all those types of things that make a great growing environment for a fungus, males are more prone to and more likely to.
And Jared, you think of athlete's foot, you think of athletes.
Well, it's true. They probably do happen more commonly in athletes for a couple of reasons. One thing that leads to more occurrences of athlete's foot is shared showers. And sometimes you think of maybe on a sports team, or maybe even at a community pool or something like that. And so the recommendation is always have on flip-flops, something else on your feet when you go into a community type shower facility. Athlete's foot can be picked up very readily there. The second reason athletes get it a lot more commonly is something Jacob said, and that is athletes continue to have socks on that are very, very sweaty. They have shoes that are sweaty. I remember when I was in high school, I literally kept athlete's foot almost the entire winter during basketball season, because I would come to practice the next day, my feet sweat so bad my shoes would still be wet from the day before. And so one of the things when we talk about prevention of athlete's foot is keeping dry socks on, changing our socks as often as we have to. There are certain kinds of sprays and other powders that will help to dry out our shoes, so we keep our feet clean and dry.
I'm sure there's a number of over-the-counter medications that you can use for this as well.
The good thing, if there is a good thing about skin fungal infections, they're actually very easy to treat, and they're very cheap to treat, and almost all of the major treatments are over the counter. There are some prescriptions, but we usually really don't need them. And so, yeah, there are sprays, there are creams, there are powders, there are ointments. They're all, again, all very cheap, all over the counter, all easy to use 2 or 3 times a day. The kick is, 1, help your pharmacist, get your pharmacist to help you pick the right product. But 2, you have to use them for 3 or 4 weeks. When you're using them, you don't stop when the symptoms stop itching real quick, or it's just going to come right back. So you do have to use it for a fair amount of time. Again, you need to speak with your pharmacist about that. But it's easy and cheap to treat. It's not hard to get rid of.
And I guess, Jared, if untreated, it can cause other problems.
If untreated, it can cause a lot of misery, that's for sure. There are at least 3 types of athlete's foot. The most common type is actually called interdigital. That's not really important, but all that means is that it occurs between the toes, and there's some severe cracking. The burning and itching with this kind is very severe, and so when you spread apart a person's toes, you see serious cracking and almost You can tell it's painful, and you can tell it bothers them from the very beginning. There's another type called moccasin type that basically occurs just right around the edges of the foot. Kind of looks like scales, but itches like crazy. And then the third type is, we'll talk some more about this in just a minute, but the third type is your classic ringworm type athlete's foot. And that's a ringworm like you could get anywhere else on your body. It just occurs on the foot.
You know, Jacob, ringworm, when I hear that word, I say, ugh, that's in your body?
It sounds terrible. You're picturing, when you hear that, you're picturing tapeworms, hookworms, pinworms. You're picturing some horrible stuff, let's face it. Ringworm has nothing to do with a worm. Thank goodness. Ringworm is just another type of fungal skin infection, big word, another dermatomycosis.
It's more
Can
harsher.
you say that?
It's more harsher than the others.
All right, so it's another type of fungal skin infection. It looks exactly like you think it looks. It's round. Very few people have ringworm, and when they come into the pharmacy we play a lot of, hey, tell me what this rash is. That's one of our favorite games at the pharmacy. We get a lot of that, and that's fine. That's what we do. But very few of them don't know what it is before they ask when it's ringworm, because again, it's one spot. It's usually about the size of a 50-cent piece, sometimes bigger, smaller, and it's perfectly round or slightly oval. But it's very clear what it is usually, and like most other fungal infections, it itches really good.
What causes that?
It's a fungal infection, and so it can be obtained just like athlete's foot can. Athlete's foot can be. Anyway, apparently neither one of us are any good at grammar today. And so you have to come in contact with it. Sometimes ringworm is gotten from pets or other sources like that. And so you guys who have dogs and cats, you've probably seen ringworm on your pets from time to time. It's one of the common places that humans get them from. Like Jacob said, though, it itches like crazy. A ringworm has a really defined border. This is one of the easiest ways to diagnose it in yourself. Ringworm has a very defined, more dark red border, and then kind of a pinkish color in the middle. And so that's how we know that that's a fungal infection. Like Jacob said, easily treatable over the counter.
Okay. We're talking with Jacob and Jared from Marble City Pharmacy, and we invite you to shop with them. They got a beautiful store that right there on West Fort Williams in Sylacauga. And last but not least, diaper rash among little ones and adults as well.
That's, I guess one thing we wanted to focus on this morning. We all know about diaper rash in young ones. Mm-hmm. What we see a fair amount of and becomes a big deal that we don't think about a lot is diaper rash in older adults, where you start to have some incontinence creep in, where they're starting to wear specialty products, whether it be full diapers or just some type of poise pads or anything that an adult might wear to treat a minor incontinence or a major incontinence can lead to diaper rash just the same as it can in a child. But in older adults, one, we don't usually diagnose it as quickly because we're not looking for it as quickly. Right. And two, their skin's not as healthy as that of a child. They're much less, their metabolism's not as good. They're much less likely to heal quickly and be easily treatable than a child is. And so we worry about diaper rash in adults, and that we wanted to highlight that this morning.
Is there particular products that are there that would better take care of that or not?
Oh, sure. Some of it is actually pretty simple. Diaper rash in both adults and kids most commonly occurs because there's prolonged contact with urine and feces inside the underwear or inside the diaper, like Jacob said, if they're wearing diapers. And so the products that we use for these are really preventative type things. First of all, to use a type of diaper, there are all kinds of brand names and store brands of those, and we can help you find those, pull-ups versus diapers and all that kind of stuff. But those have to be changed on a very regular basis. They have to be checked on a regular basis. And it doesn't just happen, this kind of rash, in people who are incontinent. If you have a loved one that you're taking care of, or a loved one who's in the nursing home, those diapers have to be checked on a very, very regular basis and changed out. The medications that are out there are really basically barrier creams. And so some of them are not even medicated. They just have skin protectants in them, is what the type medications are called. But basically, you're putting a barrier between the skin and whatever else is out there. So if a person urinates or defecates on themselves, you got the barrier there to keep that stuff from causing irritation to the skin.
Very quickly this morning, Jacob, what are signs of diaper rash?
Well, the location's usually your first giveaway, where the rash and irritation is. You can usually tell it's going to be a wet area, rife with the ability to develop these types of infections. You're going to see irritation, you're going to see redness. But let's do real quick. When you see what we're going to call extremely red skin, in school we learned it as a beefy rash. You're picturing raw steak. When you see that in a diaper rash area, it is a diaper rash, but it's a more serious form caused by a specific fungus, and then doctor time. Then we don't self-treat anymore. We don't just, barrier cream it and get the chafing down in powders and things. No, then we go to the doctor. So, yeah, what it looks like is a rash in the area exactly like you think it looks like. But if you see really, really red, then it's doctor time.
In the last 30 seconds, oftentimes older adults can't tell you.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It's very interesting. In that stage of life, it's almost like your little kids that you're treating. You get patients to the point where they can't tell you exactly what's wrong, and they certainly cannot inspect themselves, and so they need caregivers to help them for sure.
All right. Thank you both for being with us this morning on Health Monday. Jacob and Jared Johnson from Marble City Pharmacy. And for more information, they can get you guys at the store today, right?
Absolutely.
All right. We got more daybreak just ahead as we continue on this Monday morning, the 8th day of May. It's currently 47 degrees in downtown Sylacauga. Final half hour of daybreak is just ahead.